welcome to a new episode of In Other Words with Danielle and Zara.
So this is a podcast where we talk about a wide variety of different subjects, from consumerism to entertainment. So in other words, we talk about all the things. So the local business that we're going to promote today is a jewelry shop called Manana. I've bought 2 pairs of earrings from them and they are really good quality.
Very pretty.
It arrived in good time. I was really happy with it and I would definitely recommend them. On Instagram, I think they are Shop Manana, something like that. But yeah, I dig it.
Awesome. So today we have such a fun topic.
So fun.
I think that on this podcast we want to be vulnerable, and so you might hear some shocking things, but you live and you learn.
You live and you learn.
So today we're talking about
drugs, drinking.
alcohol,
We're not doing the alliteration.
Oh yes, drugs, drinking, and
debauchery.
Just hookups, don't worry.
Yeah, so basically
All those bad things.
all the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff.
So we're going into this quite unprepared because we're quite lazy. But
we're not lazy.
I
We're
am.
on holiday right now.
we're on
as
holiday.
We are doing this podcast.
So let's get into drugs first.
Let's do drugs first.
Okay, Zara,
Must I tell you about drugs?
tell us about drugs, all the scientific research that you have done.
Well, I know a little bit.
A little bit.
So here's the thing about drugs. Everyone's like, it's bad, don't do drugs. But the reality is, and I think both of us kind of had quite a shock when we left our little comfort zone of high school. Like, I remember just being in a club and this guy came up to me and he's like, do you want some cocaine? And it's just like, it's out there for you.
You genuinely do get offered things, especially if you're in university.
Yes.
It's a fairly normal occurrence,
Yes.
I would say.
Exactly. So I think the issue is that recreational drugs can become very dangerous very quickly.
Yes.
I know specifically cocaine is so addictive.
Do not do it.
Heroin is so addictive. And just from personal experience, not that I've taken these drugs, but someone close to me started on drugs in his late teens, and he's almost 30 now, and it's completely destroyed his life.
Yeah. It's very dangerous.
He's been kicked in and out of the house. He's been arrested. He's been in and out of rehab. He's just miserable. His life has been miserable. He's stolen from his family.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how it completely takes control of you.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of psychedelic drugs, which is all good and well, except I've also again seen people where it's really altered.
Yeah, no, I'm scared of that
thinking.
stuff.
It's you do it and you're like, I want to have a good time kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it messes with your psyche. And also I was chatting to a psychologist about this a while ago, and he was saying how, especially in South Africa, drugs are bad, but the drugs you're getting are very often
mixed with other things.
Rat poison.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre.
It's bizarre.
And then good old weed.
Mm-hmm.
I think, or what do you think about weed? Because it's legal now.
Well, not entirely. I personally I don't have a problem with weed and using marijuana, and I do think it should be legal. If you just think about weed as a drug, let's say compared to alcohol, the amount of deaths from alcohol are just ridiculous, and the amount of harm that alcohol causes is really high, whereas weed it doesn't necessarily have the same effect as that kind of thing. So it doesn't make sense to me that alcohol can be legalized, but weed is not so much. I don't really have a problem with every now and then, if you want to try using it, whatever, just always be careful. I think the thing is, a lot of people make out as if weed isn't addictive, and that is just absolutely not true. You can Google it. I was actually Googling it because I was like, what am I going to say? So you do definitely need to be careful with that kind of substance. And like I said, I know a lot of people who use Queed
Queed.
who use weed quite regularly, and they're like, no, it's not addictive, but they have to do it every day. So I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah, and I think anything that you feel like you need
Yeah.
is an issue. It's not just drugs, just like
Yeah.
anything like that you absolutely cannot live without, or
Exactly.
you experience withdrawal from.
Exactly. It's not a good thing.
Even people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I also think like people will argue for medical use of marijuana, and my gran, before she passed away, she used cannabis oil to help with the side effects of her chemo.
Yeah.
And we still don't know whether it worked or not.
Yeah.
But she didn't experience side effects, so it could have been because of that.
But I like cannabis and using that kind of stuff like for medical use, I think can definitely have a lot of benefits. The danger is the THC that gets put in the marijuana. And I think Devin was actually telling me something that as it's illegal, then they actually like up the THC in the weed, and then that can cause quite bad consequences.
Yeah, I know also like memory loss is a huge deal when it comes to weed.
Yeah.
So I don't know, for me I just feel like it's just better to stay away.
Yeah.
And I've been very comfortable staying away. And I mean, even like your medication, like solid medication over the counter, or that is like scripted by a doctor. These are things that are legal and they're helpful, but like they
can also be so addictive.
Exactly. There are certain drugs. Like I find it crazy that I take Mybulan like it's
your Mybulan is hectic
for my headache and but it's just something that we always have in the house. I take it more regular than I should.
You're
but
gonna
like
get stomach ulcers.
That's a huge issue with most painkillers. And then also codeine is illegal in a lot of countries. When I traveled overseas, they took my Mybulan away.
Really?
In the US, in most parts of Europe, codeine is illegal. So obviously there's an issue to that. So I think anything you're consuming, you need to be very careful.
100%.
And also, in my opinion, a lot of these drugs, it's releasing dopamine, but that's something your body produces by itself.
And
there are other ways of releasing these hormones, and your body's been designed to do so. So spend some time in the sun, y'all. Get out, do fun things,
go for a run.
Yes.
As I was saying today, how much I hate running.
Go for a walk with the sea on
I
the
think
side.
like what it comes down to, and I said this in our episode about university, is know what you're comfortable doing. Because especially as you get out of your comfort zone, I know a lot of people were exposed to drugs in high school. I was never involved with that kind of crowd. But like I said, after school, a lot of people are doing drugs. Weed is especially very prominent. I won't go into my experience with that, but anyway, I think you just know like what you're comfortable doing. And stick to your convictions as well. Like it's really difficult when a lot of other people are doing things and you're like should I be doing that? And then sometimes, especially if you've been drinking as well, like it can be really easy to just do what you said that you would never do. So you just need to watch out for that. Watch out who you're spending time with, if these are people that you feel comfortable with.
Exactly.
But with most drugs, I'm like better not get involved with that. But
I think of all the drugs, like weed, okay, experiment, but there's so many drugs and you're like, oh, I just want to feel the high, I want to take it once. And it gets you hooked like this.
What's quite interesting with weed, because I've always been told like it's a gateway drug, but I was also like just looking it up to like how true is that statement really. They say it's actually like it hasn't been proven to really be a gateway drug. Often what happens is that people start using it because it's like the most accessible. And I think in my opinion at least, because there isn't really proof that like you want to get more into a different high, but in my opinion, if you start using things like that, you can get put into the world of drugs, if you know what I mean. So you get talking to more people and they're like, oh, like, do you want to try this? Do you want to try this? And I'm not saying this out of experience. This is my opinion. I've seen it like with other people as well. So just watch out. And with psychedelics, you guys, like I wouldn't even go near those things. I'm sure, like I've spoken to a bunch of people who say that they like have positive experiences with it. And I'm like, good for you. But I feel like especially if you're already battling with mental issues, you do not want to step into that even with weed, like they say people with anxiety, like with depression, it can worsen it quite a bit. Other people like have positive experiences, but yeah, it affects everyone differently actually, which is quite interesting about marijuana. But you do what you think is best. I don't think it's bad at all, but you do what you think is best, and smoking is really bad for you, so watch out. Do your research.
I think also one more thing that I would add to the drugs thing, like if this helps someone listening, is just the whole idea of the drug game, like the business, the underground. Like
it's hectic.
Yes, drugs will always be linked to, it's so easily linked to gangs and prostitution and exploitation.
Exactly.
So just remember that
think
all
about
good
who you're
and
supporting.
well. Yes, exactly. Like where are you getting, where is this becoming accessible? Like I know that like cocaine, like they use slaves on farms in like Mexico and stuff like that. Like I've seen documentaries and stuff. So I mean, just remember like to think about beyond just the physical, like this is the drug in my hand.
It's actually quite an interesting thought, because I was speaking to my mom about this. I saw one of the states in America recently legalized like all drugs, and she was saying like what kind of effects would that have, and I think I was like researching, and it is quite possible that with the legalization of those kinds of drugs, that the exploitation like in those third world countries can actually go down, because there isn't such like a, like you said, like a game for it. So it's quite an interesting thought. I don't know too much how I feel about legalizing everything, but we'll see.
I think that's all I have to say about
even
drugs.
Even me.
Even you. Okay, good old alcohol.
Cool. Okay, I feel like it might be nice if we go into like our experiences with alcohol. No, not like telling a story, because we're not exposing ourselves. But so I think I was kind of brought up where we didn't really have alcohol in the house at all.
Okay.
I have alcoholism on both sides of my family, so it was just never something we were really interested in. I was like never really exposed to it, and I've seen like relatives acting badly when they're drinking, and I'm like, don't know how I feel about that. So I really didn't drink until I was 18 years old, when I was legal to drink. And like my first experience was on our matric holiday in Langabon. That's literally the first time I drank. Yeah, I mean, like I had like sips of wine. I had no idea that I've had like a bit of champagne. I just never really liked it. Like wine was, to me, was just like so gross. I like wine now. But yeah, that was my first time. Also, first time getting drunk was on that holiday. And I was, at the time, I was like, don't really know. And my tolerance was really high back then, which was quite interesting. It's not anymore.
Yeah, same for me.
Learned that the hard way. So yeah, I had to go through learning what my level of tolerance is.
Yeah.
Which was kind of difficult. And I've had so many embarrassing moments. Yeah. But anyway.
You live and you learn.
You live and you learn.
So for me, also have alcoholism in the family. It hit very, very close to home. And I've seen how alcohol can be an emotional suppressor for a lot of people. Yeah. And I've seen how it can tear families apart and lead to abuse a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Most cases of physical abuse is linked to alcohol.
Yeah.
But growing up, I had the occasional glass of champagne on Christmas, etc.
Yeah.
And then I gave my life to the Lord in 2015, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait till I turn 18 to drink, just so like I'm following the law of my country. Woohoo. Had the law been 21, I don't know.
Don't know about that.
But yeah, I think again, I've also had my fair share of experiences being drunk, and they were not pleasant. 2 specific times I think back on and cringe and feel disappointed.
That is how it is. Yeah,
I think specifically this one time was actually the weekend Danielle had her first drink, which I didn't know about.
That was a good night.
For Danielle, it was entertaining.
Yeah, but it's not a pleasant thing to wake up and be like,
no, because I actually blacked out that evening, and it sounds like the movies make it sound really hilarious and entertaining. And for them, I mean, like you said, it was
like if I tell you stories and you're like, oh yeah, that's
lol.
funny.
But I know that I said something to a friend that I shouldn't have said, and for me it's just, and like, just picture this, like, there's a whole gap or few hours of your life that you physically just can't remember, and people have told you stories and that's how you've made up the evening, but it could be completely different to that. And so just that experience and knowing that there's so much of that night where I think I know what happened but I don't, that for me is like very scary. And then the second time, and this is where we're going to go into the dangers of alcohol, I think. The second time and I haven't told many people this, and please can no one arrest me because what I'm about to say is dodge. But it was my 19th birthday, and I had almost like a half a bottle of tequila.
Yeah, it was hectic.
And I had like ciders throughout the day, and I don't even know what I was drinking throughout the day. And then first of all, I was having the best time dancing around, and then I had like a breakdown, and I started crying, and I started admitting things to people.
Happens. Crying, oof. Anyway.
And it just like, I think I was hit with like, wow, Zara, this is how you actually feel. And then later that night, once everyone had gone home, I got in my car, and I was not legally allowed to drive. I didn't have my license. I barely knew how to drive. Got in my car with two people who also didn't have license. We didn't have our learners. We had nothing on us.
So responsible.
And I literally drove around for like half an hour to 45 minutes.
Ew.
Completely smashed.
That's hectic.
Like, I didn't get in an accident, but like, I look back on it now, and it took me a long time to actually forgive myself, because I could have killed someone.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been so easy to have killed someone.
Yeah.
And everyone knowing me, like, that is never something that I would do.
It's so unlike you,
And it just shows that, like, once you consume alcohol, it is very possible to completely lose your sense of self. And it's so easy to be reckless. And so, I mean, I praise the Lord that like everyone is fine that night, but it could have gone a very different way. So yeah, I think from that, and then also just seeing how alcohol has affected other people, I realized that like getting drunk, I don't know, I feel like it's very much something that is seen as like, this is what you do, and it's cool and it's wonderful, but like there are always repercussions. And anyone who tells you they enjoy getting drunk is in denial. I promise.
Now, I'll say one thing. I completely agree with what you said about like you can lose your inhibitions. Very much so. Like, I'm a person, like, I don't swear at all. Like, it's not something I do. Sometimes when I drink, then I'll just start swearing, and I'm like, even at the time I'm like, why are you saying this?
But
like, you don't even anyway. Like, you don't even say that. Or like I've tried like a cigarette one time, and I was like, no, thank you. I've tried it, but I was like, that's disgusting. And that's just literally what alcohol does to you. And if you know me, you know I hate smoking. I hate it. But yeah, that's just like some of the things. And blacking out is never fun. I've done it like a couple times. It's not a good time. Most of the time, like, you feel like you have control over what's going on. But like, at least for me, like, my thing is that I'll like drink, and I'll have a drink, and I'm like, cool, I feel good. Have another one, cool, I feel good. And then another one, and it's like I should have stopped like 2 drinks in or whatever. But then I don't, because I'm like, I feel good, so I can feel more good if I have another drink, which is like a really stupid mindset to have, because that's really not how it works at all. So yeah, definitely had very bad experiences, and then I wake up in the morning like literally what happened, I don't even know. But yeah, and also like if you have to throw up in front of other people, it's so embarrassing. It happens to a lot of people, so like if you do it, like, it's not the end of the world.
And just understand throughout this podcast, we're not shaming anyone or acting holier,
because that would be incredibly hypocritical. And I genuinely enjoy alcohol. Like a lot of people will say like, oh, you don't drink because you like the drink, you only drink because like it makes you drunk or whatever.
Yeah.
But like both of us were saying
Genuinely enjoy
yeah,
alcohol.
like
I won't drink something if I
heck no.
don't like it.
I've tried beer. Ugh, no,
It's
thank you.
gross.
It's so gross. But the cocktails, the
Exactly.
wine, the
Tequila.
is yummy. And taking shots is fun as well. Anyway, not good, but fun. So yeah, I genuinely enjoy it. And I think what is also nice about like having a drink, and it's like I'm a naturally shy person.
Yeah.
Like I'm quite introverted, so if I'm in a social setting where there's a bunch of people I don't know, sometimes like having a glass of wine or a gin and tonic will like not necessarily make me not myself, but you're like kind of more open.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely do sometimes feel quite anxious when I walk into a room when there's a lot of people I don't know. And I'm not saying that like, oh, I need to have alcohol to have a good time. That's absolutely not it, because I would survive and I would still have a good time without it.
Yeah.
But sometimes just like a bit of liquid courage, you know?
That's the only time that we're good at pool.
Yeah, that's the only time we're good at pool. So yeah, in that regard, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And then I just wanted to ask, just from a Christian perspective, and like as someone who's studying theology, well, like what is the biblical perspective on drinking?
So I think there are certain Christians that are like, don't drink, drinking is bad, it's against the Bible. And to them I say like,
follow your convictions, do what you want.
Yeah, my thing is it's definitely not against biblical law. But again, if the Lord convicts you to not drink, then that's a personal thing between you and God.
Yeah.
And you best just
stick to that.
Yes, exactly. Again, and we spoke about this, I'm a firm believer that there's so much that God has given us that are gifts, that are, you know, good things, granted that they aren't abused.
Yeah.
And I think alcohol is one of those things. And I mean, the best example is like the first miracle Jesus did is he turned water into wine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He wouldn't have done that
if he didn't want us to drink at all.
Yes.
Like if Jesus turned the water into wine, why can't I enjoy the wine, you know?
Exactly. And so that's one thing, is I just feel like it's about not getting drunk, because again, when you get drunk, then you are not in sound mind, not of sound mind.
Exactly.
But I definitely don't feel like drinking is an issue. Secondly, this is a personal conviction, is the Bible speaks a lot about not being a stumbling block to your brother. And it's like just kind of reading the room and thinking outside of yourself. So there's certain settings where I just won't drink. Like let's just say I'm with someone who I know is struggling with alcohol and their temptations, and once they start they can't stop. I would prefer not to drink in front of them so that I don't make it even more difficult for them. So it's just being like wise in that sense. So that's just how I feel biblically.
I agree with you. I think it's not really true to say that drinking as a whole, alcohol as a whole, is bad, like from a Christian perspective, but I mean the Bible does speak against getting drunk. Do you think it's a sin? I don't know, to get drunk.
I think it's a sin, especially because every time it says do not get drunk on wine, for it leads to ... So the thing is, alcohol or being drunk is going to lead to something that is a sin. So
yeah, let's be wise. And I think like what we actually haven't spoken about yet is just like the health consequences. And like we're not going to go too much into that because we're not doctors, but we all know drinking is not healthy for you.
Not at all.
I think in moderation, like if you're having like a glass or two a week, I'm not saying a night because that is not entirely true to be like healthy, and doctors will tell you that it's not really healthy, but just think about like the impact that it's having like on your liver, for example.
Exactly.
Like it's not a good thing. And so if you're a very healthy person, you probably shouldn't be drinking, but if you want to have a good time,
also just guys, if you're on any kind of medication,
be careful.
Drinking can be dangerous.
It can be.
And then I think when it comes to how to drink responsibly, I think both of us are very much pro alcohol, but just because we enjoy it so much. But for me, it used to be I'll be able to feel like, this is getting out of hand. But I've actually seen how by the time you start to think you've reached your limit, you think it's almost gone over it. And so for me, I have this like 3 drink rule. So like over the day, I'll have 3 drinks and no more.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is. Or if I'm driving, I won't have a drink.
Yeah. That should really go without saying. Like, please do not drink and drive. Like, it's really not something that you want to do. But yeah, I think it's important to know your limits. It can be really difficult. But yeah, for me, it's also like 2 or 3 glasses or something, and then I'm done. It also depends on like how many tots are in a drink. And like if you're having cocktails or whatever, like that hits you really quickly. So know what you're drinking.
Know where you're drinking.
If
you're at home and you're comfortable and you're with people you care about, it's very nice.
Yeah.
If you are in some foreign place.
Yeah. Just watch out, my dudes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the final thing that we wanted to talk about was hookups.
Right,
okay.
So I have literally no experience in hooking up.
I have mild experience hooking up. I think something that I just wanted to get across is, I think for a lot of people, for example, now I'm talking purely kissing now, like not even going further, just kissing is, to quote Brooke Davis on One Tree Hill, a kiss always means something.
Yep.
And so whether it means something like personally or just means something in the grand scheme of things, like it's still going to affect you. And I mean, you know me. I thoroughly enjoy kissing. It's a very fun activity to do with someone that you care about. But I will share one experience, and you guys can call me a prude or whatever the heck you want to call me. But I only kissed 3 people. And I say only, but I low-key wish it was less. And like my ex-boyfriend, like when we kissed, it meant something. You know? And then the second person I kissed, it was nice, Happy New Year, you know. The third person I kissed, I remember like we were making out or whatever, and then afterwards like he left my house and I literally got in my bed and I cried, and it sounds so dramatic, but it was almost like there was nothing wrong with the physical, like the kiss, but I realized like, wow, that didn't feel the way it should. And I promise you, like as a person who's kissed someone that they love versus someone they don't love, and I suppose this would apply to sleeping with someone as well, I mean I wouldn't know, is it makes a difference, and it will affect you emotionally whether you realize it or not. Also, when it comes to going out and hooking up, the thing is that I know from like personal experience with especially guys, I can't speak for girls because I've never been in a place where a girl has told me this, but there were guys in high school, and when they would go out, they would have a competition of who can hook up with the most girls. And so just to know that like you're just a number. Like, that sucks. So I don't know, guys, I would just say kissing is so much fun. Just don't put yourself in a situation that you're gonna regret later. I mean that also just comes to like knowing your boundaries as well. And like this is also probably linked to alcohol, like like often people become like quite flirtatious or quite like physical when they are drinking, so that's something just to watch out for, like to know like do I really want to be doing this or not. And at the same time like you also just need to be careful of like the dangers of actually hooking up. Like you don't know like where that person's mouth has been, or like if you are going to be sleeping with people, like you don't know how many other people they've slept with, if they have an STD, like especially if you've been like out or whatever, and then you decide to go home with that person. Like I don't know, I wouldn't risk it personally, but once again it really is each to their own. And the thing with like kissing, it's very easy for it to get very heated very quickly. So just be careful.
Watch out.
It
is also like a super common thing like in university. If you've listened to our university episode, if you haven't, go do that.
Yes, you should.
But I mean like going to Stellenbosch, and where there are a bunch of clubs around the area. I don't know so much anymore because I think they've actually closed them all down, but anyway,
that's COVID.
No, I think like they've closed permanently.
Such a bad thing.
But yeah, people like, it is a very prominent parts of like the university life, hooking up with people.
You're not a bad person. Like,
no,
please
not at all.
Let this not be like
Yeah,
a shame on you.
not at all.
Kind of thing.
like it's a thing that people do, and if you get to meet the love of your life, cool. Good for you. But yeah, I don't think I would really participate even if I weren't in a relationship.
Yeah.
Even if I were never, if I were in a relationship. But yeah.
I think the last thing that I will say on both drinking, drugs, and hooking up is that I often think people turn to it as a way to numb pain.
Yeah.
Or to experience some temporary form of happiness.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, I know from personal experience, like, it just makes things worse. Like, so if you're the person listening to this, I mean, you probably haven't had much opportunity because it's COVID, but there are other ways to feel good.
Yeah.
And like, just know that you're not alone, but also just know that like there are people who can help you.
Exactly.
So please don't turn to those things for your happiness.
Yeah. And like, just watch out. Like what are you drinking for? What are you let's say taking drugs for or hooking up for? Like, what is that, a
self-esteem thing? Is that
what is the reason? And if it's something that you're trying to suppress or whatever, then it's best not to. I think it's better just to deal with things like quite bluntly, if you know what I mean. And ultimately comes down to your convictions. It comes down to your boundaries. What are you okay with doing? What aren't you? Also, like don't do illegal things.
Please don't.
I don't think it's a really good idea. But anyway.
Please don't.
But yeah, just be careful. Guard your heart. What does that even mean? I don't know. But that's the thing that Christians say.
It is. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's all we have to say.
Yeah.
I think we just want to give a shout out to Artistic Beans. She did our cover art, which you will see if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or wherever you're listening to it. So check her out. She's incredible.
Yeah, very talented.
Sure.
Thank you for listening,
guys.
Yeah. Be wise.
Be wise.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yes. Bye guys.